Hey all, we'll give it a minute or so here for folks to get joined up.
Hello.
Hello.
All right, we are 2 minutes past, so I'm going to go ahead and get things started. We are recording, and as always, this will be posted to YouTube, so remember the community code of conduct and be respectful. So we have our typical standing agenda talking about our inbound features and artifacts associated with them, current CI signal and bugs, all of that. So I'm gonna start going through that. I was hoping that Stephen Augustus would be here, but it looks like he's not. So there's been some mention of a few things coming all through the cycle that were potentially going to be exceptions, and those have never come in. So I wanted to get confirmation from Stephen that that was basically not happening at this point, right? Because tomorrow is Code Slush and Code Freeze is the week after. So looking like these couple exceptions aren't going to be accepted. Just wanted confirmation on that. Anybody else? I'm looking through the list from features. Have anything to comment there, or any that we've seen to fall away at this point? Just glancing also at the features tracking sheet to see if it has had any updates in the last few days. Not seeing, well, actually, looks like Jim had made a few changes, but also not on the call. Is there anything, Kenny, that you would comment on there that you've seen in the last couple days?
That's what I was about to say. I was looking, but I don't really think of anything that's big standing out that's changed. I believe I took one off. I can't remember exactly what it was, but anything that I have taken off, I've moved it to the other tab that says "Missed for the milestone."
Okay. And there have been a couple things that I've kind of wondered about their status, so I've attended SIG meetings and been keeping an eye on them, and people still seem confident that they're moving forward. So we will see. The next 2 weeks especially will be telling, as we've got 4 weeks remaining, and you get halfway through that, you're really down into the point where it's either done or it's not happening. So we will see then, I guess.
There
So
was one that sort of made it to light. I saw it on a different Slack, but apparently the Windows GA might be pushed to 113. I saw something that might have happened in Signode, so I think that's one of the things that we were targeting as one of the big milestones to talk about, and I think it's going to slip.
yeah, it's a little unclear to me. They had a set of things so that the one bucket said stable GA, and that obviously implies a lot. But within that, the set of things that they identified, I think, were all done. But as they've talked to other SIGs, there's quite a few other things that are also coming. So yeah, I think that one there. If you look at the specifics of what they had in plan, that stuff's happening. But then the actual notation is it's not even gonna say probably. It's not happening in this release. It's pretty clear. So I guess that's a for docs, release notes, marketing. That's one to have on your radar. And I think the part of part of what happened there was is they were focused on what they knew, and there were a number of unknown unknowns to the team. And as they talked a little bit more with other SIGs, they realized that there were some more interdependencies, and to really claim they were stable in GA, people wanted to have more balance versus the feature set of what's available with a Linux container. And there were enough caveats there that I think they realized that we actually need to close that gap. All right. Any questions there? Comments? Okay, I'll move on to test infra. So our current set of test failures, to kind of briefly talk about that before we really get into CI signal, we have a lot of test failures right now. A lot of them are happening on the Google platform specifically, but because so much of our test happens there anyway, some of them it's hard to split. And as I look at the symptoms, I feel like some of them are things that are maybe not operator specific. I mean, they're operator problems as we move the project forward. So I feel like GKE maybe is slightly a bit of a canary there. And I'm just a little bit worried to say, like, because in the past release, we said, well, let's remove some of these always failing or always flaky GKE things from release blocking. But if they're our only source of signal on things that potentially are very impactful for an operator, we actually want visibility on that. So it's kind of a balance. Um, I'm curious if anybody else has thoughts on that.
I agree that it's a good signal, but in the last milestone when those fail, we kind of decided not to block on that. So
Yeah,
that's where
like
the balance comes, I think.
I think having it in the test grid for blocking, like we should be getting more stuff in there as opposed to taking it out. So then I think we as a team have to look at it and decide on a case by case basis, should we consider this one actually blocking, even though it's in test grid blocking,
Yeah,
to make that exception.
yeah. One thing that generally, if it has like the upgrade ones, they'll have a GKE test and then they'll have a GC counterpart of it. If that one passes and just GKE once turned red, then yeah, at least from in 1.11, we never blocked on those, considering that it'll be taken care during the GKE release stream. So, but yeah, I agree that that's our one of our provider signals. Um,
I'm on mute. Anybody else with thoughts there? Otherwise, we could shift on to the specific bits of the CI signal. All right, I will move along then. So last week I went through and looked at the failures and tried to kind of bucketize them a bit more. And there's a link to a Google Doc there. And we're at the point where each of those failure symptoms needs to be its own distinct issue so that we can go out to a specific SIG, get a specific owner and say, hey, this problem needs an owner, needs a resolution. If we have too broad of an umbrella, it's hard for anybody to focus in on anything in particular, and it's easy then also, like with a lot of these maybe being GKE specific, somebody to kind of glance at it and be like, GK issue, not going to look further into it. But as I look through a lot of them, I'm not convinced. I mean, I've only got a few that I marked as definitely clearly GKE or Google specific in my initial triage. So I think, Mohammed, you're working on getting issues open for each of these today? Can't hear you. You look like you're not muted. Still not hearing you. We'll give you a sec to rejoin, or give him a second to rejoin.
We found, and by we, I mean Arnaud, found a test failing related bug that was filed today. So I think that's basically just a case in point for what you just said, Tim, about, well, what if there's, actual real problems behind every one of these failures?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Finally. Yeah, so that's something that is actually quite a problem, where we cannot tell exactly what the failure is. So, but for that, I've been actually trying to dig out and eliminate them. So, I've also been looking at the document, and yes, for some of them we still don't have the issues for tracking issues, which I'm going to be opening them. There's a broader one for the multiple upgrade failures that we had. I'm going to break them up today into separate things based on the feedback we have gotten so far. But the CI is right now. I would have to agree with Tim that it kind of looks reddish.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything change over the last week, but I think that's because we haven't been specific enough on saying, hey, this particular thing needs this particular person looking at it.
Yeah, so I will be opening the separate tests after this meeting for the upgrade tests, specifically, and I'll be I guess I'll be pinging a lot, and I guess that it's time that I will have to need people to cooperate with me, I guess, because I alone pinging is not helping. We'll
Yeah,
need more eyes and more.
and that's where it's easier if there's specific issues. So we'd say issue 6789 needs looking at, and any of us can go look at the status there in GitHub and understand who's been pinged, who hasn't, and we can reach out to additional people or the same people if they haven't responded. So that's where the
Okay.
specificity helps. Right now, like, I mean, network load balancing issue, like who's been talked to so far on it? We don't have any artifacts of the history of the discussion, and that's what the GitHub issue for that specific thing gives us. We've talked to these people, they've assessed it to be this person, we've talked to them, they haven't responded. It gives us the history so we can follow up efficiently.
Okay. So yeah, for the issues that are already open, I'm linking them. Like, for example, if I find all the issues open for that, I'll definitely go and make sure that issue is used for following it up. Like in the case of, I believe it was. Let me just take a look at that. So for one of the tests, there's already an issue open by another person. So I am just using that for tracking. I guess this was for scalability storage. So for the one where the 27, the GGC PVD thing. So there's already an issue open. So I thought, why open another one? It's going to be an issue or an issue.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I'm
If there's
putting
already one, then we need that linked, and like that's where an umbrella issue helps. Like we can say, here's our current test failures, see sub issues 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. At this point, there's
Yeah.
potentially 13 of them. So we have, or the spreadsheet that's been used in past releases, so that we have an oversight of the short list of things, but then from there we can tunnel into detail information on who's been pinged, who hasn't.
Yeah. So I'll take care of the missing information today, and hopefully we can start pinging deeper starting tomorrow, maybe.
Yeah, if you get issues open today, I can be following up on them today.
Yeah, me too. I can ping folks within Google who I know have worked on that particular 6 earlier. So maybe we can get faster turnaround on those.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts or comments there from the team? All right, then I'll hand it over to you, Gwen.
All right. So most of the same bugs from last week, with the exception of the one I mentioned that was related to test failures.
And that one, am I reading right? That it like that's been around forever. Well,
No,
like
are
not
you
that
on the
one.
right one?
So there was
I don't think so.
that's not the added one. So
No,
new,
it was open 14 days ago, and it was just recently added to the milestone.
which number is that?
67348. Are
Okay.
you on the right week?
I
Because
am. I
last
was
week I had
looking.
a special mention one. That one's still around. That one's being worked on.
That's the
It's
one
got a
that's like
PR
a
and everything.
40,000, like a
Yeah.
January of 2017 number. Okay,
Yeah, like a super old
that
one,
was the
but it's
last.
actually being worked on. And
Okay.
while it's still open, I saw some progress. Yeah, this one's 2 weeks old and only recently got added to the milestone. I hadn't seen it yet. I should. It's a little bit. Yeah, there's not really a good search tool to find issue and feature related bugs as of this point. I have to sort of rely on people labeling it correctly. And that's why this only just now popped up.
Yeah, and if they haven't labeled it or they haven't put words that clearly match, like this one is actually kind of nice in that there's currently the link to like, hey, this might be the GCE scale correctness issue.
Right, but
But
without
you
the
have to know to,
milestone, it's
yep,
like, yeah.
you got to
And
go search for a whole bunch of
right.
seemingly random words.
Additionally, this one doesn't have priority on it yet, so I've prodded that one for a priority because I don't know the priority, and we are probably going to want a priority in a week from now. So, other than that, I saw one test issue close, but that's not really my job. Anything, yeah, and then there's a big overall umbrella failing test tracking issue that's new. Everything else is the same.
Gwen, you had some
Yeah.
question about the AWS one.
Yes.
Did I answer your questions, or do you have some more follow-up questions?
Did you answer them in channel? If so, I haven't.
Yeah, in Slack. So the TLDR is that particular kind of test has been flaky forever now.
Okay.
Months. We did a few. We fixed a few low-hanging issues that improved the flake rate, but still, the fact that they're written in a specific way, it's really hard to like get it passing all the time. It's a more involved effort, and currently I don't know who is actively looking at them because Justin used to, but I know that's not his current focus anymore. So that's where the issue is. So I don't think it's a 112 specific issue.
Okay. Yeah. I was just curious because it had been in a milestone and then didn't make the milestone. And then I was just, oh, let's see, is this relevant? Okay. So I'll just drop it and worry about it when it comes up again. Thank you.
And that one I find particularly interesting because one of the, looping back to where we've started the meeting, like how much do we worry about GKE specific things? Some of that depends on how much peer coverage we have. Like if we have some A/B testability, like we can upgrade using Kubadium on the Google platform, but we can't with the cluster directories scripts. Okay, well then probably it's the cluster directory scripts, right? And Kubadium is proof that it works. Google versus Amazon, we have the test point that there is this set of COPS tests, but then if those are flaky and have historically been flaky, we don't know, we don't have that A/B testability, and even then it's not consistent, right? You'd want Kubadium on each of them, and or COPS, and or the cluster, but Kubadium is a future direction, so that's what we're focused on, and there we don't have coverage. So this is very much almost a kind of mind reading or tarot cards or whatever the analogy would be to just try to suss out whether something matters or not. So anything anybody sees like that, like Gwen, this is a great example of like, hey, how we got to have the conversation and have a bunch of eyes look at it and figure out how worried we should be.
Yeah, I'm not sorry I asked about it. So thanks, I appreciate it.
Anything else on bugs?
Nothing that I can tell. There's a couple of them that are getting closer, and I prodded a whole bunch of them because I didn't see any work on them since last week. So come code freeze, either some people are going to get very, very hasty or very, very sad.
As much as I've expressed some concern about where we stand on the features, I have actually been pleasantly surprised at seeing quite a bit of feature work really coming in and not seeing additional destabilization and tests. So, I mean, the right things are happening. It can be easy to get overly worried on the release team because you're focusing on all the problems, but there is good signs of positive work happening too.
Yeah, it's, I was just a little bit concerned. Where did my quick notes go here? There's a couple of critical urgent ones. There's 3 of them, and I haven't really seen, well, there's a new one, but there's 2 of them that I haven't really seen any activity on, and it seems to be pretty, like, on one of them, people are still just pushing the ball around, so I don't have high hopes for that one. On another, I think there's actually a couple open PRs. They just haven't seen any review lately. So I just pinged some folks on both of those.
Yeah, the 2 storage ones, I feel like storage has a very detailed list of features that they're working to land in 1.12 and in 1.13 because the CSI container storage interface work is aiming to hit their stable GA milestone in 1.13. So they have, I feel like they've got pretty good artifacts of work and are kind of steaming forward on things, but that may also mean that they're very busy and scattered in attention. And if you have something that's priority critical urgent, but the issue is opened on June 5th, that doesn't come across as critical important. And obviously, and that one is an example. It didn't start out as critically important back then. It was important soon and then got elevated. So they are coming along on their work, and they're one of the things that we've done in the past, and I haven't always been fond of it because I feel like the data set is small, but we've tried to give sort of a histogram of what Josh called the leaderboard, the leader on problems, and which SIGs are carrying the most risk in terms of issue counts. And it is informative, though, to see and balance that versus feature work and merges and things happening so that you get a sense of how active a SIG is or whether they're not. And SIG storage, at least the activity levels, give me a sense of comfort, actually, I would say, that they're on top of stuff right now. All right, so moving along. Zach, how are you doing on poking people?
Well, I mean, aside from building software that will poke them for me repeatedly, which probably would be helpful, I'm not actually all that disheartened at the level of lack of docs open PRs. I mean, I'm sure what I was thinking was like, I probably could have explained the process better, and so that there could be some confusion coming from that. But I sort of did a drive-by shooting of the Kubernetes features repo and just kind of basically spammed everybody and said, all of you are late. And so 10 people kind of responded and said, yeah, let's work on that. Really the point of having the docs open deadline is just honestly to gauge activity on the feature. If somebody is prepared to open a PR literally with nothing in it, just open a PR on the docs website, they're fairly confident that this release is going to be coming in. So that's the litmus test that this is really used for. I mean, I'll start some PR reviews, but I'm not going to look at most of this until 2 weeks from today or tomorrow. When is it's a week from tomorrow?
Yes, code freeze, yeah.
So a week from tomorrow is code freeze, and that's when docs deadline is too, I think. So so that's when we really start potentially dropping features or saying like, hey, this is super bad. So there are, just for those the rest of you know, out of 64 features that we have, there's 36 that do not have open PRs. for documentation, which is pretty serious. Although 36 features in a single release is still quite high. Or wait, no, 64 minus close enough. A number that is greater than 0 features is a decent release. So I think we'll have, if I'm just kind of like opening up a crystal ball, and you mentioned the tarot cards, we might as well get into all of the black magic. I think we'll probably have 18 that probably don't make it based on this list because of docs or other related code frees. Like, oh, hey, actually, this isn't going to work out. So that's my thought. Like I said, haven't started reviews, just still bugging people, and I'm decently encouraged. I have 2 awesome shadows, so they have been really staying on top of people and being helpful. So that's it from docs. Nothing exciting. Sorry.
Oh, no, that's good. And I think it's really useful to call out, like, we can make automation that pokes people, and we've had that on issues and PRs and all this stuff, and we've kind of started walking away from that because that stuff is all filtered, and that one-on-one ping or reaching out to people is where we're getting better responses. It's not
My
ideal.
secret is I use my own personal token, so it actually looks like it's coming from me. And I'm working on trying to get it with Slack. I can use my Slack personal token to reach out to them if they have the same GitHub username as Slack.
So to carry the analogy forward, I feel like all the things that we're doing in documenting better our release team processes and the SIG release role handbooks and stuff like that, we're creating the syllabus for the Defense Against Dark Arts class.
If this feature has energy level, no, I'm kidding.
Acceleramus. All right. So any other questions or comments there? I'm curious also, since we've talked a bit about features and docs and starting to get a sense of things that might be slipping the windows, one is a concrete example. Caitlin, do you have any thoughts or comments?
We're in good shape from a comms perspective. We are doing another meeting on Thursday with the features team just to go over the blog post and anything that may or may not slip. So we're in good shape, and I'll have more updates after that.
Okay, cool. So the next couple things I wanted to talk about briefly, some process stuff. So we talked about removing or dropping the requirement on status approved for milestone. The lazy consensus was still later today on that, but haven't seen any objections and quite a few +1s on it. So that should be going forward. I need to scrub the GitHub team still, the milestone maintainers list. I'd created a spreadsheet. Actually, I should drop a link in the document. I went through and looked at the team and compared it. We have also an owner's aliases file that has a milestone maintainers alias in it that's completely unused, but these 2 sets were like hardly even overlapping really. So people have been confused on what it takes to set milestone, and somehow things have worked despite that. And I think that's actually proof that a large part of the community gets their stuff on time, so they're not gated by code freeze. And then that the SIG leads where they have stuff late, the SIG leads or the SIG leadership, whoever it is, whether it's a SIG chair or some higher level approver from the group or whatever, active people are sufficiently getting milestones set to not have trouble. I feel like in the past releases, we've only had a few things where somebody really, really struggled figuring out how to get something set and we needed to step in. Test infra has a little bit of a fix up. So the way that we had done code freeze in the past was partly through the GitHub milestone, or not, yeah, GitHub milestone munger. I keep forgetting which munger's name is which. So we stopped using that munger, and Tide is what's going to be used for code freeze, but we realized as we were talking about changing these labels that there was a slight gap in what the automation could actually do to enforce, and Cole has got a PR going there. Oh, and I had meant to leak that as well. I will drop a link in there after the meeting.
Yeah, I'm just have to write the test for that, so I'm going to do that today.
Okay, cool.
Regarding the loss of status labels, which will be real in a few hours if we're still waiting for 3 p.m. Pacific. We need to update all of the job descriptions for release team roles. Or at least the ones where those are relevant. So I think the easiest way to do this is if every team lead could just issue a PR against that and correcting the
Yeah, I suspect
reflecting that.
you might be the.
I might be the only one.
Not the only, but I think for I'm not sure about branch manager, but I have a PR in flight there. I forget if this had come up there, but for the release lead, I think I've scrubbed, but I'll double check. And yeah, it's a good shout out to double check everybody your role handbook and see if there's anything related to approved for milestone there.
I'll get that PR in later today after 3 p.m. Pacific. Well, that'll be midnight. Maybe tomorrow. Excellent.
Yeah, it's not a big rush, and actually, this is something I'd been thinking about this weekend that I should do today. It's kind of this is a good time. So we're just finishing the second month of the 3-month cycle. Everybody should glance through their role handbook. Give it a read through. Is there anything in it that you've noticed over the last 2 months is out of date? And go ahead and drop a PR in there, because the next month we're going to get that much busier, and then once we're done, it's always that much harder. It starts to become pulling teeth to get people to go back and review and PR docs because they've moved on to things. But as we're going through, if we keep those things up to date as we see them, that's a really good thing that we can do for the next release team.
Remind me where these handbooks are.
SIG release repo under release-team, and then there's a role handbooks directory, and I will drop that in the chat and drop it in the meeting minutes as well, as did other people. Thank you, Arnaud.
Thank you, Mushley.
Mm-hmm. So the next one around process stuff, cherry picks. Cherry picks have been a mess for a while. Gwen has been working on cleaning up the developer guide with respect to that. And then Nikita also noticed some things and put a PR against test infra, and that was merged, but then it's caused a follow-on issue. So I put links there. I think everything, unless, Cole, do you have any comments on the needing to bump the prow image? That had come up in Slack, but I don't know that there's an issue specifically.
I don't know what the status of that is. If Amit hasn't done it, I can also do that today.
Yeah, as far as I understood, all it takes is, provided everything is working as expected, it just needs to get bumped.
Yeah, the working as expected is always the catch. But yeah,
hey.
I'll check to see if Amit has done it, and if he hasn't, I'll do that today as well.
Thanks, Cole.
For sure.
I guess it's a relatively minor issue just at the moment in that it's blocking cherry picks on past branches, but I think the next branch update that's scheduled is Monday of next week, so the branch manager there, or the patch release manager probably wants to be able to be merging things, but it's not like we're blocking master or 112 release, so it's slightly lower pressure, I would say. Next on the list, we've already talked. Go ahead.
Sorry, I had one more question with the cherry picks. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that the current cherry pick labels are reflected correctly in that doc. We still need cherry pick approved labels for a merge. Is that correct?
Yep.
We do not need cherry pick candidate labels anymore.
I don't know.
Okay, well, it seems fuzzy on the cherry pick candidate, so where would be a good place to kind of raise the issue on sunsetting the cherry pick candidate? So
the one thing that I'm unsure of is whether the automation requires, I haven't gone and looked through the script to see how if somebody creating through the automation, the tool creates a cherry pick and it applies that label, what does the branch? So it's not applying
I don't
the
think that
candidate label.
I don't think that script applies to candidate label.
Okay. The
I
thing
can
that
double check.
Mhm. I want to know what the normal practice is for the patch managers, how they find the candidates, if it's just people pinging them directly or labels, and whether they have any automation.
I'm assuming they find them with the cherry pick pull request, not the original. The candidate label goes on the original,
Okay.
as far as I
And
understand it. So
Dim says the
I would,
script does not have privileges to add the label, and that actually makes sense because it would have
right.
to, yeah. Well, then
So
I would,
so that would be my suggestion, to remove the candidate, because it probably addresses a use case that has since evolved.
yeah, I would do a couple of git greps on KK and test infra and I guess SIG release, although I don't expect anything there, and also community, just to see if there's any existing docs or scripts potentially somewhere that has that label encoded in it, but I bet you don't really find much.
Right.
And then the other thing to do would be to look at the release team for 9, 10, 11 and send an email to each of their patch release folks and see what their thoughts are on it, if that would mess up anything that they have workflow-wise.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm way better at asking people than asking Git. So,
And if this process is not great, which it might have problems with it because it's spread across Munch, GitHub, and Prow right now, as it's getting migrated, we can change the behavior. So if there's some better way that we could be doing something, that's certainly worth recording.
And
great, awesome.
quick question: where is the writer for the whole cherry pick process? Is it also part of the patch manager or branch manager handbook?
I'm working on a developer guide doc right now that clarifies it. I can send you a link to my particular branch that I'm working on. Actually, there's an open PR with lots and lots of comments. Hang on, let me put that in the channel real quick.
And it's linked in the agenda also, the Devel Guide PR link there.
Here you go. There's all the document talks about it.
Thanks. I will look into it. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other thoughts on cherry picks? This is I know Aaron's not here, but Cole Cole kind of he is. Sigbeard. Yeah. Anything you want to say about how annoyed you are with cherry pick process?
Oh yeah, they're terrible. Who wants to volunteer to actually improve it?
I have another question.
I mean, just to give some brief context, right? Like before I quit previous employer to work for a new employer, I did try to collect everybody's gripes with cherry picks and put them under one super old cherry pick issue that was called improvements to the cherry pick process to make it easier for them to track or something like that. And within that, I linked to a bunch of different GitHub issues, as well as a mailing list thread that was started by Jordan Liggett to try suggesting how we could try using better labels, how we definitely wanted to support the use case of like cherry picking a single PR for master into multiple release branches at once, things of that nature. There is Prow, I forget if it's an external plugin or just a different Prow command, but OpenShift has been using it on their project where they can issue a /cherry pick on one of their PRs, and that will automatically create a cherry pick pull request. And we could augment that to like add the appropriate shiny labels and have the labels automatically do the things according to our rules, processes, and whatever that are still in the midst of being documented and revised to simplify everything. So that all sounds cool. I don't have time for that. I don't think she's on the call here, but I want to give Nikita like all the thumbs up I possibly can for working to move some of the cherry picking logic over to out of Munch GitHub and over to Prow. And like if she's the person to continue doing that stuff, awesome. But we could use somebody who has like that level of technical depth and who can kind of stay committed to this for a couple of weeks to really solve all of those problems. That's all I have to say on cherry picks. And I apologize if I rehashed your discussion or anything.
No,
No, not
that
at all.
ties it up nicely, and it reminded me of that there is. Do you recall, is that issue that you had opened the umbrella one? Is it in test infra or community?
It's in test infra.
It's
I
test
can
infra,
pick it
okay.
up and drop it in the.
Yeah, I can find it too. I know I've commented, I think, on it as well, so I'll drop it in a link in the agenda.
Okay, one other thing related to that, like one of the there are a few remaining munchers in Munch GitHub that are involved with running this thing called the cherry pick queue, and I want to go talk to all of our patch release managers and branch managers and ask if any of them actually use that thing, because I don't think they do. If they don't, we can go ahead and turn that down, and that's less functionality we have to port over to Prow. But again, that's kind of low on my, I'm calling it a heap these days. I'm not sure if that's because it's a mess or because there is some kind of priority queue involved, but that's another thing out there.
What was the name of the munger part for that?
The cherry pick queue.
Yeah, if you go to like,
queue, okay.
If you go to cherry pick, let me see if it's one word or two words. Yeah, like this is probably another one of those things where like, do patch release managers even know this thing exists? If you go to cherrypick.kates.io, it's something that's supposed to show like pull requests against release branches that have a different set of labels that blah, 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 blah. And if nobody's using it, we shouldn't have it.
Well, let's not advertise it too much when we're asking if people know about it.
Yeah. No.
But I think that goes to the bigger picture. We've got a smattering of tooling that's kind of incoherent, not consistently used. If we're going to clean up the process, we should define a good process that works for the people who exercise it, and then have automation that follows it, like people, process, automation in that order.
100%. I'm trying to take, because of my bandwidth issues, I'm trying to sort of take the lower effort approach of, instead of reinventing the cherry pick process and putting this new shiny thing in place right away, if people aren't using the old busted, undocumented, broken thing, I think it's easy to just get rid of that. But there's an issue for that shiny new thing. I just personally can't own it. I would love it if somebody did.
Okay. Anything else on cherry picks? And as much as I say people, process, tools, that's like aspirational, right? I mean, in the meantime, all of these cleanups are awesome. And like you said, Nikita, and also Gwen, the stuff that you're doing, this is awesome progress. So Code Slush tomorrow, again, as a reminder. And then one cool thing, last week and this week, Doug, who's our branch manager, is on vacation, and his shadows are actually doing some of the work for him on doing branch fast forwards. And we found a number of documentation issues. And one cool thing as well, I'm not sure if Yang Li's on, we actually did today the branch fast forward from China. And one of the things that we're trying to figure out here is how much of the process as we get it into the community beyond Google, can we ensure that we're using tooling that is exercisable by the broadest community, that we're not excluding certain folks. So that's actually a really cool finding. And potentially one of the betas in September, we might try and have Yang build just to see what happens. The interactions there with GCB are a little more complex than what the branch fast forwarder does. But this is cool progress, I think.
By the way, who's taking notes?
I am trying to, but I can't talk and type fantastically.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for having awesome notes and awesome agenda and sticking to it. And it makes everything just so much easier to follow through, follow up on, and follow along with. I just really love this.
Well, I appreciate that, because I was feeling bad today that I started the agenda like 5 minutes before the call or something. I'm moving super slow this Monday. My niece is hiking the Pacific Crest Trail, and I went and took her food this weekend, and I hiked 12 miles or something with a 50-pound backpack, and I barely made it to my desk this morning.
Yay! Oh, that's awesome. All that means is you're just going to get the bugs, 2 minutes before the meeting. So
Yeah.
it's all good.
All right. I think then we've hit everything on the agenda, and we've got a little bit of time left. Happy to give it back.
One more thing. I just want to let everybody know that I've started the release notes draft document.
Okay. I was going to wait till next week to ask for that, but actually this is one other thing then. So next week, Monday, is a holiday. I will send out a cancellation, but then starting this week, we're going to 3 times a week meetings. So the invites for that have gone out. And I tried to pick a time that splits the difference. I will do my best to have the agenda doc updated for each day. If you're unable to make the meeting, since we're meeting 3 times a week, it's not, for the next week or so especially, probably not super critical that we have everybody always there, but drop a little message in the Google Doc if you're not going to make it, just with a status, any issues or concerns, anything that needs some visibility.
Cool. So what I was saying real quick is I've dropped the link into the chat. The first time we did Google Doc, and we had a lot of trouble with last minute conversion back to Markdown, and then last time we did just straight Markdown and GitHub, and that was unworkable because of time issues and it took too long, et cetera, et cetera. So this time we're going to split the difference and do Markdown in a Google Doc and see if that does any better. So
have you tried HackMD yet?
You know what? I completely forgot about HackMD until I heard the first part of your sentence. So I'm going to retract everything I just said and go back and HackMD and see if I can get that going, because I just did this before the meeting too. So let me go back and do that. All right. Thank you. So never mind, I'll report in next time. Thank you very much for the reminder.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
I got one other thing, just because I don't see it on the notes. Cole, have we talked about whether or not we are still using the submit queue for this release, or are we pushing to use Tide for this release?
We have not discussed it like recently, no. But I would still like to push for Tide. Yeah, it should be ready for us to essentially start trying it out. The only last change that we're waiting for is the front end change to just display the branch status and milestone status. The PR is already out for that though, and we can start testing out that Tide can handle the load and everything in dry run mode now.
Okay.
The main thing that I just haven't been doing that because I've been working on getting these plugins for the kind and SIG label requirements instead.
Yeah, I completely understand. I don't know if today is the right time or forum to have that discussion, but I want to make sure if we're planning on doing that, we have the right stakeholders involved to do a go, no go decision on that. The conservative part of me wants to say no. Part of me that wants Munch GitHub to, warm us by the glow of the bonfire that consumes it, says we should move forward and make sure that we over communicate what we're doing here. So I think at a bare minimum, Tim needs to be involved in that process, and I think we should consider having either some very verbose chats about this in the SIG release channel, possibly talk about it at SIG testing tomorrow, though I'm not going to be around there, and maybe have a breakout session about it later this week, depending on where we are timeline-wise. I'm 100% going to defer to the judgment of Tim as the release team lead on final decision and how to drive this forward, though.
So based on my chats with Cole and you, I have taken the impression that we are going to use Tide, but we haven't given a specific to-do list there. So Cole, would you be able, by the Friday meeting, to give sort of an assessment on a breakout of what you think needs done at this point, and we could review and discuss from there?
Yeah, by then I think I can have I can have tested it out in dry run mode, not actually making any changes to test that it's working properly as well by then.
Okay. Awesome.
That's all I got.
Also, a reminder for all US and Canada, apparently, people, next Monday is a holiday, but we do have the meeting.
So
Or do we?
I'm going to send out a cancellation for it since we're meeting 3 times a week right now. Plus, we have the alternate Tuesday meeting. So next week, we would still have 3 meetings. It would effectively be Thursday's the only day we don't have one, besides Monday being the holiday. So, like, I think we've got pretty solid coverage at this point.
Okay. Cool. I'm glad
So
I brought it up.
Unless folks really want to meet on the Monday. I see a few heads shaking horizontally. I work with some folks in Bulgaria, and this means yes. So
I can't.
all right. So I will send out a cancellation for next Monday's meetings. You should all have seen invites for the meetings being added on Wednesday and Friday. All right. I think we are definitely at the end of the documented agenda. We still have a couple minutes, but ready to call it a meeting? Going once, twice?
It's a meeting.
It's a meeting. Happy Monday, everybody. Thank you for everything.
Later.